I want to ask you a question about the very first 3 minutes of your day.
Oh, this is going to be convicting, I can tell.
Right. Because think about your morning routine. Specifically that exact moment right after you open your eyes. You wake up, you blindly reach over to the nightstand, you
Silence the alarm?
exactly, you silence the alarm on your smartphone, and then what happens next?
Yeah, the inevitable scroll.
The scroll. If you are like, well, the vast majority of the human population right now, you immediately start scrolling. Before your feet even touch the floor, you're basically plunging headfirst into the absolute chaos of the world.
It's true, you're just mainlining it.
Yeah. A flood of unread emails, breaking news alerts about, global crises, social media updates from people you haven't spoken to in a decade.
And just a barrage of calendar notifications.
Exactly. You are essentially inviting the entire noisy, demanding, panicked globe right into your bed with you. You start your day in this posture of defense, reacting to external stimuli. And then, think about your evening, 12, maybe 14 hours later.
It's just a mirror image, isn't it?
It is. Are you lying in the dark, the blue light of the screen just illuminating your face, scrolling until your eyes physically burn? You're letting an algorithm dictate the very last waking thoughts that enter your brain before you slip into unconsciousness.
Which is, it is a profoundly modern psychological crisis.
Yeah.
We are bookending our days with cortisol spikes, we are waking up to anxiety, and we are literally going to sleep to anxiety. We're outsourcing our mental framing to whatever happens to be trending.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is going to look at an entirely different way to bookend your life.
I think we desperately need this.
We really do. We are taking a massive step back from the digital age today. We're going to examine a 150-year-old Victorian classic, one that has quietly yet so powerfully anchored the minds and hearts of millions of people across generations.
Yeah.
We are looking at Charles Haddon Spurgeon's Morning and Evening.
And, examining this work is just a fascinating pivot from the way we typically consume information today.
How so?
Well, because we are entirely accustomed to fragmentation, we live on these tiny, disconnected bursts of data. A tweet here, a 15-second video there, a Slack message.
Just skimming headlines.
Right, exactly. But what we have on the table today is a masterclass in sustained, intentional, lifelong focus.
And to really get to the bottom of how this book functions, we have pulled together an incredibly rich stack of materials for this deep dive.
The sources are fantastic for this one.
You really are.
Yeah.
We are drawing on extensive modern theological analyses of the 365-day devotional itself. We've pulled historical metadata from the Christian classics ethereal library.
Which archives the transmission and impact of these massive historical works.
Right, exactly. And even more crucially, we have incredibly detailed linguistic breakdowns of the original Greek and Hebrew texts that Spurgeon was using to craft these daily entries.
That's the best part.
Right. Alongside curated thematic reviews that really highlight how this book has endured for over a century and a half.
Those linguistic breakdowns are going to be the absolute key to our conversation today.
I totally agree.
Because if you just glance at a 19th century devotional, it is very easy to dismiss it as like a collection of quaint, comforting, needlepoint pillow sayings.
Nice little quotes.
Yeah, but when you actually look at the underlying Greek and Hebrew grammar Spurgeon employs, you realize there is a profound, almost architectural theological structure at work beneath the surface. He is doing neuro-linguistic programming for the soul before that was even a concept.
That brings us directly to the core mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are setting out to answer one specific, highly practical question today.
That's right.
How exactly does this Victorian-era book inspire Christians to love Christ more deeply and live for him more fully in their daily, ordinary, chaotic lives?
Yeah.
Like, how does a collection of daily readings from the 1860s speak so piercingly to the modern, exhausted, overstimulated mind?
Well, to set the stage for answering that, we have to recognize the most extraordinary thing about Spurgeon's entire project.
Which is what?
He fundamentally refuses to treat spirituality as a Sunday-only event.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
By deliberately breaking the text down into these morning and evening segments, he takes the standard model of religion where you go to a building once a week for an hour, and he completely shatters it.
Right.
He transforms the entire day, the mundane Tuesday morning or the exhausting Thursday afternoon, into a canvas for spiritual reflection.
He's insisting that those hours between sunrise and sunset, the hours where we are commuting, working, struggling, paying bills, are actually sacred time.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack the actual structure of the book itself, because, well, form follows function.
Absolutely.
When we look at the publishing history, these were originally released as two completely separate, massive volumes. Morning by Morning was published first in 1865, and then Evening by Evening followed a few years later in 1868.
Right. And combined, we are looking at 732 total entries.
That is a lot of writing.
It is. It's a comprehensive, year-long devotional curriculum. It provides one specific reading for the morning and one for the evening of every single calendar day.
And the format is deceptively simple, but incredibly dense, right? Each entry pairs a very short biblical phrase or verse with just 200 to 300 words of pastoral reflection.
Yeah, very short.
I want to focus on that structure for a second, because the concept of having a specific reading for the morning and a specific reading for the evening is brilliant. Think about your day as a bookshelf.
Okay, a bookshelf.
For most of us, that shelf is totally chaotic. It is crammed full of unpredictable, messy, heavy volumes. Your job demands, a fight with your spouse, a sick kid, financial stress, traffic jams.
A very heavy shelf.
Exactly. And if you don't have bookends on that shelf, all those messy volumes just collapse into a heap.
They just spill everywhere.
Right. So the morning reading acts as the left bookend. It sets a rigid structural posture for the day, keeping your mind standing upright before the chaos hits.
Oh, I love that analogy.
And then the evening reading acts as the right bookend. It catches all the exhaustion, the failures, and the stress of the day, organizing that chaos and giving it meaning and closure before you attempt to sleep.
The psychological utility of that cannot be overstated. I mean, you are establishing a perimeter around your consciousness.
Yeah.
And what the critical analyses of this text continually point out is the stark contrast between Spurgeon's approach and the vast majority of contemporary devotionals on the market today.
Right, let's get into that.
Modern religious publishing often relies heavily on what theologians bluntly categorize as fluff.
Let's talk about that fluff, because the analyses in our sources are unapologetically harsh about it.
They really take it to task.
They do. Modern devotionals are often marketed as quick, superficial pick-me-ups. They are designed to be a little burst of generic positivity to make you feel mildly better about yourself for exactly 5 minutes before you get back to the grind.
Yeah, they function like a spiritual sugar rush.
The sugar rush, yes.
They give you a quick spike of dopamine, but they possess zero nutritional value for the long haul.
Right.
And Spurgeon's Morning and Evening fundamentally rejects that entire paradigm.
How so?
While operating from within a very robust, historically grounded, conservative, evangelical framework, Spurgeon treats his reader not as a fragile consumer who needs to be coddled,
Okay.
but as a serious pilgrim. And a serious pilgrim navigating a dangerous, hostile world does not need a sugar rush.
No, they don't.
They need what the historical texts refer to as strong meat to survive the harsh realities of the journey. It is a demand for absolute spiritual rigor.
I have to push back on that phrase, though. Strong meat.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a very visceral, muscular phrase. But if I am a 21st century person, and I am already exhausted from working a 50-hour week, managing a household, and dealing with the perpetual anxiety of modern life, isn't strong meat just a polite 19th century way of saying the book is dense, demanding, and utterly exhausting to read? Why would an exhausted person want a heavy theological steak at 6:30 in the morning?
It is a vital question, because the instinct is to seek comfort when we are tired.
Naturally.
But think about the physiology of endurance. If you are preparing to run a marathon, eating a handful of cotton candy will taste wonderful for 3 seconds, but it will leave you crashing at mile 2.
Yeah, you need actual fuel.
You need complex carbohydrates, you need dense protein. Spurgeon's argument is that the world is going to batter you today. You are going to face temptations, interpersonal conflicts, deep disappointments, and perhaps genuine tragedy.
Right, the real world.
A platitude like "smile, God loves you" will disintegrate the moment you get a call from the doctor with bad test results.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So strong meat means theological truths that are dense enough, complex enough, and heavy enough to actually anchor your soul when a Category 5 hurricane hits your life.
So the density isn't to punish the reader.
No, not at all.
The density is the ballast that keeps the ship from capsizing in rough water.
Precisely. Spurgeon's explicitly stated aim for these volumes was to aid private meditations and family worship, but specifically to supply spiritual energy for the journey of faith.
Energy, right.
He is constantly, relentlessly pushing back against mere formalism. Formalism is the dead, mechanical checking of a religious box. Going to church, saying a rote prayer, and feeling like you've paid your dues to the universe.
Like checking the attendance sheet.
Exactly. He wants to obliterate formalism and build what the literature calls a consistent experiential Christianity. Or, using the terminology of the Puritans who heavily influenced him, he was trying to cultivate heart religion.
Heart religion. It's not just an intellectual assent to a list of historical facts. It has to actually pump through the veins of your daily routine. It has to dictate how you speak to your coworkers and how you handle financial loss. But to understand how this book actually provides this strong meat, we have to look at the one thing, or rather the one person, it is absolutely obsessed with.
It's unavoidable in the text.
It really is. If you read through these 732 entries, you immediately realize that the beating heart of this entire massive project is its relentless, unyielding focus on Jesus.
The theological analyses describe it as an intensely Christocentric focus.
Yeah.
It does not matter if Spurgeon is expositing an obscure dietary law in the Old Testament book of Leviticus, or if he is looking at a sweeping apocalyptic vision in the book of Revelation.
He always brings it back.
Every single page, every single metaphor ultimately serves one purpose, to lift the reader's eyes away from themselves and fix them squarely on Jesus, his person, his historical work on the cross, his absolute sufficiency, and his eternal glory.
There was a specific observation in the material that completely reframed how I think about this.
Oh, what was that?
It points out that today, in modern religious culture, people almost exclusively treat the gospel, the story of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, as the ABC of Christianity.
Yes.
It is viewed as the introductory course. You learn the ABCs so you can get saved, get your ticket to heaven punched, and then you move on to the complex literature of life.
Right, how to be a better leader, how to fix your marriage.
How to manage your anxiety, how to be politically engaged. But Spurgeon argues that the gospel is not the ABC. It is the A to Z.
It is the entire alphabet.
You never graduate past it.
Yeah.
Every single day, every single entry is just a new way of drawing the reader back to trusting Christ more deeply, rather than trusting their own self-improvement techniques.
What's fascinating here is the underlying theological engine that is driving that relentless focus.
Okay, what is it?
It is not just hero worship. It is a very specific theological concept that the sources identify as union with Christ.
Union with Christ.
If you do not understand this concept, you cannot understand morning and evening. It is arguably the controlling theological center of gravity for the entire book.
Okay, I am going to need an ELI 5 explainer.
Right.
Like, I'm 5 for this.
Sure.
What exactly does union with Christ mean in this specific 19th century Reformed context? And why does it matter for someone reading this on a Tuesday morning?
Let's break it down. In the Reformed evangelical framework that Spurgeon championed, salvation is not viewed merely as an abstract, cold, legal transaction where a judge bangs a gavel and declares you innocent.
Right.
That is part of it, according to the doctrine, but it is not the whole. Believers are consistently described in the New Testament as being literally in Christ.
In Christ.
Yes, it is an organic, living, breathing union. Think of a branch grafted into a vine. Every single spiritual benefit flows entirely from that living connection.
So it's not a transaction, it's a transfusion.
That is an excellent way to put it. Let's look at the theological terms often thrown around. Justification and sanctification. Justification is your legal standing, being made right with God, having your guilt removed. In this framework that is grounded entirely in Christ's finished work, not yours.
Right.
Sanctification is the ongoing, messy process of actually becoming a better, holier person. That process flows directly from abiding in him, drawing sap from the vine.
I see.
And the assurance of your salvation, the psychological piece of knowing you are safe, is tied to your daily, active participation in his life. It is not just adhering to a doctrinal statement. It is a reciprocal relational reality.
And you really see the emotional weight of that relational reality when you look at the specific, incredibly intimate language he uses.
You really do.
The linguistic breakdowns give us a brilliant example of this depth from the February 18th pairing.
Oh, that's a great one.
The evening text is from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Ephesians chapter 1, verse 6. In the old King James English that Spurgeon used, it reads, "He hath made us accepted in the beloved." Now, the materials provide the Greek breakdown of this exact phrase. What is actually going on beneath the English translation here?
This is where we see Spurgeon's profound reliance on the original biblical languages. He wasn't just waxing poetic, he was mining the Greek.
Mining it for what?
The specific Greek verb used there for the English word accepted is ekarichison. It is an incredibly rare word in the entirety of the New Testament.
How rare are we talking?
It appears exactly twice.
Twice. Wow.
It appears here in Ephesians, and it appears in Luke's Gospel during the Annunciation when the angel Gabriel appears to Mary and calls her highly favored.
Oh, interesting.
The root of the word is charis, which means grace. So ekarichison literally means to highly favor someone or to grace someone immensely and overwhelmingly.
Okay.
From the conservative evangelical viewpoint, Paul's linguistic choice here confirms that the believer's security is entirely monergistic.
Wait, monergistic, break that down. Mono meaning one, meaning it is a one-way street.
Exactly. Mono meaning one, ergon meaning work. One worker. It means that salvation, acceptance, and being highly favored is God's work alone. God chooses the inheritance, and then he graces the believer to receive it. There is absolutely no supplementation by human merit, human effort, or human morality.
Okay, I've played devil's advocate here because the modern mind rebels against this.
Bring it on.
If it is entirely a one-way street, if I am completely accepted and highly graced entirely apart from my own effort, how does that not immediately lead to deep moral laziness?
Right, the license to sin argument.
Exactly. If the test is already graded and I got an A+ wet, why would I bother studying? Why wouldn't a person just live however they want, completely selfishly, and say, hey, it's fine, I'm monergistically graced?
It is the oldest objection to grace in the book, and the Apostle Paul dealt with it in his own day.
So what's the answer?
The answer, within this framework, circles right back to what we just discussed, union with Christ, because the grace doesn't just hand you a ticket to heaven. The grace actually unites you to the person of Christ, fundamentally changing your nature. You don't become lazy because the living sap of the vine is now pumping through your branch.
So the desires change.
Right. You want to produce fruit because your desires have been altered. But devotionally, understanding that rare word ekperlichison completely stabilizes a person's identity.
And the analyses provide a very heavy, intensely real-world application of this identity stabilization.
I do. It's very powerful.
They note that in extreme environments, specifically places like hospice settings or terminal cancer wards, where literally all other forms of human identity are violently stripped away from you.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you are lying in a hospice bed, your career title is gone. Your physical strength is gone. Your ability to provide for your family is gone.
Your independence, your dignity.
Your intellect. It all fades.
Yeah.
In that moment, who are you? The analysis argues that this specific truth anchors the soul against absolute despair. The realization that you are possessed by Christ, that you're a charitison, highly favored by God's action alone, regardless of your current output or physical utility, holds you when the entire universe seems to be falling apart.
It completely reframes the fundamental nature of the believer's existence. The comfort in that moment is not, I have held on to Christ so well my whole life.
No.
The comfort is, Christ is holding on to me, and his grip does not fail when my muscles give out.
That brings a level of emotional intimacy to the theology that is, frankly, staggering.
It really is.
And Spurgeon leans into that emotional intimacy hard. He is not afraid of sounding incredibly affectionate.
Give an example.
Well, look at the March 9th entry based on the Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. Yeah, he's altogether lovely.
Ah, yes.
Now, Spurgeon doesn't just give a dry theological lecture about the attributes of God here. He actively urges his readers to anoint Christ with the sweet spikenard of our fervent love.
Such poetic language.
The language of affection is so intense, almost romantic in its devotion. He is looking at the reader and asking essentially, I know you believe the data about him, but do you actually love him?
And that is a crucial distinction in 19th century evangelicalism. The critiques of this era highlight that true Christianity, in Spurgeon's view, must be experiential.
Right.
It cannot just live in the intellect. Joy, deep sorrow, absolute assurance, terrifying doubt, they are all addressed pastorally through this lens of an intense, highly emotional love for the Savior.
Yeah.
But we have to be very careful here. This love is not meant to exist only in a vacuum.
What do you mean?
It is not designed to be felt only in a moment of quiet, candlelit meditation in your bedroom. It is specifically pragmatically designed to be the combustible fuel that propels the believer through the actual chronological, grueling hours of the day.
Which provides the perfect bridge into the actual rhythm of the hours.
Yes.
Because how you start a Tuesday morning and how you end a Tuesday night require very different types of fuel, different types of psychology, and frankly, different types of theology.
The temporal framing of the theology, how he maps doctrine onto the movement of the sun, is brilliant.
It's so intentional.
When you run a textual analysis on these 732 entries, you see a massive, statistically significant difference in tone, vocabulary, and theme between the morning and evening readings.
It's incredible when you lay them out side by side.
Yeah.
The morning devotions are characterized by a very specific lexicon. You see words like duty, battle, service, preparation, armor, and strength.
You're gearing up.
You are. You're drinking coffee, lacing up your boots, and preparing to step out into a world that is fundamentally indifferent or even hostile to you.
But then the evening devotions lean heavily into a completely different vocabulary.
Right. Forgiveness, sleep, peace, sanctuary, restorative reflection, and grace.
You are laying the armor down. You are assessing the damage of the day, cleaning the wounds, and resting in the security of the camp.
Let's look at the January 1st case study provided in our materials, because it illustrates this architectural rhythm perfectly. Day 1 of the year.
Okay, let's do it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You crack open the book on the very first day of the new year. The morning text is from Psalm 71, verse 16. I will go in the strength of the Lord God.
Right.
And then the evening text, 12 hours later, is from John chapter 15, verse 4. Abide in me.
Simple enough on the surface.
Yeah, on the surface, in English, it just looks like two nice, comforting verses. But what is actually happening in the original languages to create this rhythm?
It is a profoundly deliberate pairing. In the morning text from the Psalms, the Hebrew word used for strength is gebura.
Gebura.
This is a very specific type of strength. It focuses on mighty acts, on valor, on an outward, aggressive reliance on God's power to face the external physical challenges of the day.
Okay.
It is an anticipation of dynamic action. You are going out into the public square, relying on gebura, on divine, forceful power.
So you are suiting up for the battle.
Right.
You are asking for the strength to not yell at your boss, to execute your tasks with excellence, to protect your family.
Exactly. You are on the offensive. But then the sun goes down, the workday ends, you come home, you lock the door, and the evening text from the Gospel of John uses the Greek word menate, which we translate as abide.
The grammatical tense of minate is the key here.
It is the absolute key. It is an aorist active imperative.
Okay, stop right there.
Greek grammar warning.
Right. For those of us who haven't taken 3 years of Koine Greek in seminary, what does an aorist active imperative actually feel like when it lands on the human ear?
Well, an imperative is a command, but the aorist active nature of it means it is not a gentle, passive suggestion.
It's not optional.
No, it is not saying, hey, if you have some free time, try to chill out with me. It is a decisive, urgent, sharp command to remain, to stay put, to actively anchor yourself in a vital union with Christ. The discourse features of this specific passage show it as a climactic petition. So the psychological and spiritual dynamic Spurgeon is setting up for the entire year on day 1 is this.
Go on.
The outward strength, the aggressive gebra that you go out with in the morning is entirely maintained, replenished, and made possible by the internal, quiet, desperate, abiding, the menate that you do in the evening.
That's powerful.
You literally cannot survive the morning's battle without the evening's communion. They are two halves of a single spiritual heartbeat.
That is such a brilliant, sustainable architecture for a single day. You breathe out in strength, you breathe in to abide.
Yes.
Let's look at another one, because the March 1st pairing takes this exact rhythm and applies it not just to a normal day, but to dealing with severe, painful hardship.
This one is intense.
It is. The morning reading focuses on the Old Testament, Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 16. The verse literally summons the north wind of trial and the south wind of comfort to blow upon the garden of the believer's soul. And then the evening reading shifts to the New Testament, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 7. He is precious.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of Christian suffering, we see how Spurgeon uses the chronological day to balance trial-induced growth with absolute, rock-solid assurance.
Break that down.
Look at that morning verse. It is literally an imperative command summoning the wind, specifically the harsh, freezing, biting north wind of trial.
I'm going to stop you again, because this sounds completely insane to a modern listener
Oh, it completely goes against our culture.
who asks for the north wind, who wakes up at 6 a.m. and prays, "God, please send a freezing, destructive wind into my life today."
Nobody wants that.
Our entire modern civilization is built on avoiding the north wind. We have climate control, we have instant delivery, we have painkillers, we have noise-canceling headphones. We optimize for absolute comfort.
Exactly.
Summoning the north wind sounds like bizarre spiritual masochism.
It sounds like masochism until you understand the metaphor of the garden, which is central to this text.
The garden metaphor, right.
From a historical evangelical perspective, this parallels the Holy Spirit's sanctifying work. The believer is viewed as a walled garden that is supposed to produce fragrance, spices, and fruit.
Okay.
But here is the botanical and spiritual reality. Sometimes, the heavy, sweet fragrance of a plant is only released when it is bruised, or when a harsh wind whips through the branches and scatters the scent.
Oh, wow.
A garden that only ever experiences still, humid air becomes stagnant. Spurgeon is urging the reader to adopt a posture of profound trust, accepting any wind, whether it is the warm south wind of prosperity or the freezing north wind of adversity, as long as it glorifies Jesus and makes the soul more fragrant.
That's a high bar.
It is. That is your morning preparation.
Yeah.
Brace yourself. The wind is coming today. You cannot avoid it, but know that it is deeply purposeful. It is not random physics. It is a gardener pruning his prize roses.
That completely flips the script on how we view a bad day.
It does.
A bad day isn't a failure of the universe. It's the north wind doing its necessary work. But man, after you have been battered by that freezing wind for 12 hours, you are going to be exhausted. You need a refuge.
Which is exactly why the evening text is perfectly calibrated.
Let's hear it.
You drag yourself home after the north wind has blown all day, and the evening text is 1 Peter 2.7. Unto you, therefore, which believe he is precious.
He is precious.
The linguistic materials provide a full discourse analysis of this Greek text as well. The word used for precious is tome.
Tome.
It doesn't just mean cute or sentimentally valuable. It means inestimable value, supreme honor, a weight of glory ascribed by God himself.
Okay.
And the grammar of the verse uses a present participle for the word believe, pistuison.
Break down the practical impact of that present participle.
The linguist Constantine Campbell has a theory on verbal aspect that the sources cite heavily here.
Right, I saw that.
He points out that this present participle portrays faith not as a simple point in time, but as an imperfective, ongoing, continuous reality.
So it's not a one-and-done event.
No, it's not a one-time act of, I believed in Jesus back in 1995. It is a continuous, living, breathing state of active trusting.
Wow.
So the discourse elevates the bruised, battered believer, contrasting them with the world that completely rejects Christ.
So the narrative ties together perfectly.
The overarching narrative of the day is stunningly cohesive. The morning invites the sanctifying, painful winds of trial, but the evening radically exalts Christ's preciousness, the time proving to your exhausted mind that even the hardest, most painful parts of the day were intricately designed to draw you closer to a Savior who is infinitely valuable.
It takes the random, senseless suffering of a terrible Tuesday, a flat tire, a screaming argument, a failed project, and gives it an incredible cosmic narrative weight.
Yes, it gives it profound meaning.
And I think we need to emphasize heavily here that these daily rhythms, this intense theological focus, it is not just for professional theologians sitting in dusty libraries.
For monks chanting in monasteries.
Exactly. The materials make it explicitly clear that Spurgeon, preaching in the gritty, smog-filled industrial heart of 19th century London, designed this specifically for regular working-class people dealing with the mundane grind.
The dirty dishes, the difficult bosses, the harsh realities of regular life.
That is a vital transition for us to make. We are moving from the abstract architecture of the hours into what we might accurately call the crucible of the ordinary.
I like that phrase, the crucible of the ordinary.
It is one thing to parse Greek verbs. It is another thing entirely to ask, how does this high theology actually hit the pavement of real, dirty, modern life?
It hits the pavement by completely, radically reframing the concept of human suffering.
Let's talk about that.
When you read the curated quotes from Spurgeon in the source material, you see a view of hardship that is almost totally alien to the 21st century.
Right.
According to this framework, suffering is never just bad luck. It is never a glitch in the matrix. It is never meaningless chaos. It is always, without exception, redemptively framed.
There is a quote from the analysis that perfectly encapsulates this worldview. Faith increases in quality, assurance, and intensity the more it is exercised with tribulation. Faith is precious, And its trial is precious too.
Yeah.
Its trial is precious too. Again, that goes against every single human survival instinct we possess.
Right.
Our biological and psychological instinct is to escape the trial immediately.
Right, we want out.
We want to numb it, we want to mitigate it, we want to scroll past it, we want to sue whoever caused it.
But the conservative evangelical perspective, echoing the letters of James chapter 1 and 1 Peter chapter 1, insists that trials refine faith exactly the way fire refines crude gold ore.
So it's not just grinning and bearing it.
It is not stoicism. It is not just the British stiff upper lip, gritting your teeth, repressing your emotions and bearing it. It is actually a bizarre form of gospel joy.
Joy in suffering.
The theology claims that the exact same faith that justifies the believer legally in the courtroom of God is the faith that sanctifies and purifies them through the heat of suffering.
To see how he applies this heavy concept to a highly specific day, let's look at the August 15th pairing.
Okay.
I want you to really break this one down for us. The morning reading is Isaiah chapter 48, verse 10. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction.
The furnace of affliction.
And the evening reading is from the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6, verse 13. Lead us not into temptation.
This specific pairing is an absolute masterstroke of pastoral psychology and application.
How so?
You have a very clear, deliberate linguistic tension established here. The evening prayer, lead us not into temptation, uses the Greek word perismon.
Perismon,
Yeah.
right? What is the nuance?
In the New Testament, this single word can be translated in two distinct ways depending on the context.
Right.
It can mean a temptation to commit a sin, or it can mean a testing of character.
Oh, wow. That is a massive difference.
It really is.
One implies malicious intent to make you fail, and the other implies a constructive intent to make you stronger.
Exactly. And Spurgeon balances those two meanings beautifully across the span of the day.
Walk me through it.
The morning text from Isaiah establishes the baseline reality. God himself uses the furnace of affliction to test and refine character. Think of a metallurgist. The refiner turns up the heat to melt the gold so that the slag, the impurities, float to the top and can be skimmed off.
So the heat is necessary.
God tests us for growth. But, and this is a massive theological caveat, God never, ever tempts us to commit evil.
That's a crucial distinction.
That is the domain of human flesh and the demonic. So the evening text, the desperate plea to lead us not into temptation, is the exhausted believer praying for protection from the enemy's malicious enticement to sin while they are enduring God's fiery trial.
So, practically speaking, if I lose my job,
Okay, so let's use that.
the loss of the job is the furnace. It's the test of my character and my trust in God. But the urge to lie on my resume to get a new job, or the urge to drink myself to sleep because I'm stressed, that is the temptation to sin that exploits the pain of the furnace.
Spot on. That's exactly how this works.
This pairing teaches you to do two wildly difficult things simultaneously. Accept the searing heat of the refining fire during the day, because it is burning away your arrogance and self-reliance.
Right.
But remain humble and desperate enough to pray in the evening that you don't spiritually collapse and fall into sin while you are stuck in that furnace.
It is an incredibly realistic, unsentimental view of human weakness, perfectly coupled with a massive view of divine sovereignty.
It doesn't pretend the fire doesn't burn.
No, it doesn't. But it insists the fire is controlled by a loving refiner.
And what's fascinating is that it is not just the dramatic, life-altering furnaces of affliction like terminal illness or bankruptcy that Spurgeon addresses.
No, he goes much smaller than that.
He spends an enormous amount of time elevating the incredibly mundane, boring, repetitive parts of life. There's this profound concept in the book of practical holiness in ordinary life.
Oh, this is one of my favorite aspects of his work.
Let's look at the December 11th entry. The text is Colossians chapter 3, verse 24. Ye serve the Lord Christ.
This goes right back to your earlier analogy about how we view our tasks and the bookends on the shelf.
Yes, it is the ultimate perspective shift. We often use the analogy of the janitor who is just sweeping a dirty floor versus seeing himself as a caretaker maintaining a royal palace.
Right.
But let's upgrade that to a mechanistic modern analogy. Think about the difference between writing lines of code for a useless, buggy smartphone game that wastes people's time
Okay.
versus writing the exact same lines of code for the navigation system of a spacecraft carrying astronauts.
Ah, yeah. That's a great comparison.
The physical action is the exact same. Your fingers are hitting a keyboard. But the ontological value, the ultimate meaning of the work, is completely transformed by who the work is for.
Yes.
Spurgeon says that this verse, ye serve the Lord Christ, ennobles the lowest forms of labor. He specifically says it ennobles the drudges of the kitchen and the smith in the smithy.
The linguistic materials quote a specific, highly poetic reflection Spurgeon wrote on this exact verse. He says, "To wash feet may be servile, but to wash his feet is royal work."
Royal work.
The theology here asserts that the shop, the barn, the scullery, or translating it to today, the claustrophobic cubicle, the mind-numbing rush hour commute, the endless piles of toddler laundry, these environments literally become sacred temples when the work is executed for the glory of God.
So you are no longer just doing laundry. You are serving Christ by serving your family.
Exactly.
That is such an impossibly high view of normal, boring life. It infuses Monday morning data entry with eternal significance.
It really does.
But the sources are quick to point out that this high view of life also comes with a very sharp, demanding edge. Because to live for Christ fully in the ordinary world, the materials note there is an absolute necessity of moral separation.
Yes. The September 11th entry tackles this head-on.
What does it say?
It is based on the biblical command, be separate. Spurgeon explains that the Christian must walk what he calls the highway of holiness.
Highway of holiness.
But what is absolutely crucial to understand here, especially in our modern context of culture wars and political polarization, is that this does not mean physically leaving society.
So we're not becoming hermits.
No, it does not mean building a walled compound in the woods or exclusively buying products from Christian companies or retreating into an echo chamber.
Right, we have to remember his context.
Hmm.
He is preaching to people living right in the middle of 19th century London, which at the time was the center of the global empire.
Yeah.
It was one of the busiest, dirtiest, most economically cutthroat cities on the face of the earth.
Exactly. The separation he is demanding is internal, moral, and spiritual. It is about shining as a distinct light in a dark place.
So how does that play out?
He specifically warns against avoiding what he wonderfully terms the frivolities and little rogueries that rob religion of its power and joy.
Little rogueries.
The historical analyses point out that in Spurgeon's view, grand, dramatic sins are obvious, but it is the small inconsistencies that are truly dangerous to the soul's vitality. Little compromises slowly sever the tendons of spiritual strength, making the believer creep and crawl when they ought to be running.
Little rogueries. I love the archaic flavor of that language, but it applies perfectly today.
It does.
The little compromises we make, the slightly inflated expense report at work, the subtle passive-aggressive gossip by the water cooler,
Yeah.
the ethical shortcuts we take because everyone else in the industry is doing it, the 50 minutes wasted scrolling through outrage bait on social media instead of playing with our kids.
Those are perfect modern examples.
Spurgeon is saying those aren't just minor harmless mistakes, they're actually microscopic cuts that slowly bleed out your spiritual joy.
Exactly.
But exploring all of this raises a massive, highly practical question.
Okay, what is it?
If the daily requirement is this demanding, if a normal Tuesday is full of terrifying furnaces of affliction, mundane scullery work that must somehow be treated with royal dignity, and this intense, unyielding need for strict moral separation from the corruption of the world,
Right.
how does a normal human being actually sustain this level of devotion without just completely burning out physically and spiritually by Thursday afternoon?
That is the critical question of endurance.
Yeah.
And the thematic reviews answer it emphatically in the section regarding how the believer is sustained by the word. The primary non-negotiable lifeline, according to Spurgeon, is prayer.
Prayer.
But we have to redefine prayer here. He does not view prayer merely as a religious duty to be checked off a to-do list, like flossing your teeth.
Fred, the quote pulled from the text regarding prayer is incredibly stark, almost violent. Prayer is the breath of the newborn soul. A prayerless day is a declaration of independence from the Creator.
Think deeply about the philosophy embedded in that phrasing, a declaration of independence.
It flips our cultural values.
Completely. In the modern Western world, independence is our highest cultural virtue. We want to be self-sufficient, self-made, self-reliant, financially independent.
Of course.
But in this theological framework, spiritual independence is essentially suffocation. Just as the biological body cannot survive for more than a few minutes without oxygen, the soul cannot survive the toxicity of the world without constant inhaling and exhaling communion with God.
So prayer is breathing.
Prayer is the assumption of continual, desperate dependence.
This raises an important question, though, a highly practical one.
This raises an important question.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
If prayer must be constant, and the demand for holiness and separation from little rogueries is constant, what happens when you inevitably fail? Because
Yeah.
human beings will fail. You will lose your temper at your kids. You will fail the test in the furnace. How does a believer deal with ongoing daily sin and failure without falling into absolute crushing despair?
Right.
If the standard is royal work, and I just acted like a jerk in traffic, how do I not just quit?
This is exactly where Spurgeon's deep reliance on the absolute sufficiency of Christ's atonement becomes the safety net that catches the falling believer.
Okay, tell me about the safety net.
The sources point us to a brilliant example of this in the April 11th morning text taken from 1 John chapter 1, verse 7. The blood of Jesus Christ his Son cleanseth us from all sin.
Okay, let's do another linguistic deep dive here, because the specific Greek tense of the word cleanseth is literally the whole ballgame.
It really is the fulcrum of the entire verse. The Greek verb used for cleanseth is katharizai,
Katharizai.
and it is conjugated in the present active indicative tense.
Present active indicative. Break the mechanics of that down for us.
In Greek grammar, this denotes a continuous, ongoing, uninterrupted action.
Ongoing.
Yes, it does not just mean that you were cleansed once in the past, a decade ago, when you first walked down an aisle and believed. It means that there is a continuous, real-time, ongoing washing happening to your soul right now in this very millisecond.
I want to make sure I grasp this, so let's use a modern financial analogy.
Go for it.
It is not like paying off a massive credit card debt once, breathing a sigh of relief, but then immediately going back into debt the very next day when you buy lunch, starting the cycle of anxiety all over again.
Right.
Katharizai is like having an infinite trust fund attached to an automated clearinghouse that zeroes out your balance. The exact microsecond a new charge hits the account.
Exactly.
The system is fundamentally designed so you literally, legally, cannot carry a spiritual deficit.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Pastorally, Spurgeon is leaning heavily on this grammatical reality to guard the believer against the paralysis of despair.
Because despair is what makes you quit.
Exactly. When you are struggling with a recurring sin, a bad habit, a character flaw on a daily basis, the devil's tactic is to convince you that you have exhausted God's patience.
That you've used up your grace.
Right. But the knowledge of kathares, this continuous automated cleansing, keeps you from giving up. You do not have to somehow re-earn your standing every time you stumble. The cleansing is active, it is present, and it is operating independently of your performance.
That takes an immense, crushing amount of psychological pressure off the individual's daily performance and places it entirely on Christ's historical performance.
It really does.
Which brings up another massive linguistic anchor mentioned extensively in the historical reviews. John chapter 19, verse 30, the final words spoken by Jesus from the cross. It is finished.
Spurgeon repeatedly returns to this three-word declaration as the absolute, immovable bedrock of a believer's psychological and spiritual assurance.
And again, the underlying Greek is profoundly illuminating here.
Yes, the single Greek word translated as "it is finished" is tetelestai.
Tetelestai. I have heard that word preached on in Easter sermons before, but what is the exact grammatical nuance that makes it so powerful for daily endurance?
It is conjugated in the perfect tense. In Koine Greek, the perfect tense is highly specific.
Okay, what does it mean?
It emphasizes a completed past action that has ongoing, permanent, irreversible results in the present.
So it's not just it was finished back then a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was completely finished in the past, and therefore it remains perfectly finished right now and will always be finished.
Exactly. Redemption is not provisional. It is not a bridge that was built 99% of the way across a chasm, waiting on the believer to add the final 1% through their own good works, their own quiet times, or their own moral separation.
It is accomplished.
The theological analyses note that, devotionally speaking, understanding this perfect tense completely silences both guilt and legalism.
Because there's nothing left to pay.
Right. It allows the exhausted, battered believer to rest completely in the sufficiency of Christ's atonement at the end of a long, failing day.
You could just hear the visceral relief in that for someone who is burned out by the demands of the world, it is finished. You don't have to finish it. You just have to rest in it.
Yeah.
And that daily sustenance, that daily rhythm of resting in what is already finished, naturally points the reader's mind toward the ultimate finish line of human history, eternity.
Yes, the eschatological hope, the concept of the end times, the very end of a year, the readings for December 31st, captures this grand narrative arc brilliantly.
Let's look at that final pairing. The morning text of New Year's Eve warns the reader, the end of all things is at hand, taken from 1 Peter 4.7.
And the Greek word used there is engikon, which means has drawn near.
It creates this sense of holy urgency. Time is incredibly short. The year is ending. Your life is ending. Human history is wrapping up.
It forces you to evaluate how you spent the year, but Spurgeon doesn't leave you in a state of existential panic.
With the evening text.
The evening text, the very final reading of the entire 732 entry journey, comforts the reader with a sweeping promise from Isaiah chapter 25, verse 8. He will swallow up death in victory.
What a monumental way to end the year.
It is.
It reframes everything we just talked about. The daily grind, the freezing north winds, the terrifying furnaces of affliction, the monotonous scullery work, the struggle against little rogueries. It is not an endless, meaningless hamster wheel.
No, not at all.
It is all heading toward a definitive conclusion. It is ultimately leading to absolute cosmic triumph over death itself.
It perfectly situates the isolated believer within the grand sweeping narrative of Scripture. You aren't just surviving a random, chaotic Tuesday in the 21st century.
No.
You are a vital participant in a story that is moving inexorably toward final glory.
So bringing all of this together, synthesizing these 732 entries, the brilliant morning and evening chronological architecture, the deep dives into Greek and Hebrew tenses, the rich, muscular analogies.
Yeah.
Morning and evening is clearly, demonstrably, not just a collection of nice fluffy quotes to print on a coffee mug or post on Instagram.
No, it is a meticulously crafted, theologically dense bridge built specifically to connect the ancient biblical text with the lived, messy, daily Christian experience.
It takes the vast, unsearchable, intimidating riches of Christ and distills them into two highly practical daily moments, morning preparation for the battle and evening peace for the wounded.
Absolutely.
It literally, conceptually transforms the scullery into a temple. It takes the terrifying furnace of affliction and radically turns it into a place of joyful, purposeful refinement.
If there is a single overarching closing thought to take away from analyzing these historical texts and linguistic breakdowns, it is that the enduring power of this book lies in its masterful, seamless integration of three things:
Which are?
doctrine, experience, and practice.
Doctrine, experience, and practice.
It takes the absolute highest, most complex doctrine of Christ's finished work, applies it directly to the inner emotional experience of the believer's anxiety and joy, and demands that it result in the physical practice of daily communion.
Yeah.
It absolutely demands that you do not leave your faith compartmentalized at the church doors on Sunday, but that you weave it into the very minutes, hours, and seconds of your Tuesday morning commute and your Thursday night exhaustion.
It is the ultimate proven antidote to modern spiritual compartmentalization.
Without a doubt.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering, somewhat uncomfortable question for you to explore on your own today. Think back to how we started this deep dive, talking about the chaos of the smartphone screen, the exact moment you open your eyes.
Oh, back to the cortisol spikes.
Exactly. In an age where we are constantly, aggressively bombarded by fragmented information, algorithmic outrage, notifications, and breaking news from the moment we wake to the moment we sleep. What is currently serving as the morning and evening bookends of your own mind?
That's a great question.
Are you being anchored by the eternal, or are you being tossed around by the temporary? And how might your daily life, your stress levels, and your capacity for joy transform if, instead of passively letting the noise of the world dictate your first and last thoughts, you intentionally chose to anchor them in something that claims, in the perfect tense, it is finished?